Hi, thanks for tuning in again. In this video, I'd like to show you how to use PathTrace to create overlapped openings like this. It's a pretty straightforward project that just requires a little attention to detail. Overlapping the smaller image so that it comes in on the larger one unifies the two visually and creates more of a sense of connection, both literally and design-wise. You can use this sort of design, with or without the vGroove, with a variety of projects that incorporate a large and a small image, or a photo and a smaller object. Think of things like a jersey with a photo or a baseball card, or a christening dress along with a photo, maybe a photo of a favorite player along with an autographed hockey puck. How about a photo of a grandmother along with her favorite brooch, or a portrait with a medal, or a picture of the big catch along with the lure used to catch it. Once you use this design idea a few times, you'll find a lot of ways to use it. If you'd like to create this design as a frame model for your store, here are the materials used. For copies of the photo you can print, contact Tom Adams and he'd be happy to email them to you. Now let's get started. To start with, I've laid out the openings for the two photos. The reveal on both of those is 3/8 of an inch, which is a bit wider than what we normally do, usually about 1/4 of an inch, give or take. But on this sort of design, you want that reveal to be wider because when it's cut, if it's too narrow, it won't stand up. It could just cut right through at the corners, or if it does stand up to cutting, it's just going to be very flimsy, both physically and visually. So 3/8 is a good starting point, and I'm just going to leave it there for the time being because I want to go up to the larger opening here and add the vGroove. So that's under there. I made sure I've got that opening selected, and I will add a vGroove, and I'll put that at about 1/2 an inch, well, no, maybe about 3/4 of an inch actually away. Okay, and it looks like it could stand to come out a little bit more. So I'm going to make sure I attach that to the second opening rather. And then I'm going to bring it a bit further out. Okay, there we go. 1 inch was right to begin with. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to position this opening. And when I drag it over, it's automatically going to center. And I'm just going to bring it up about there. And I'm just looking at that as a design decision, just whatever looks good. I'm not worried about the exact distance. If I did need it to be a specific distance, I could just right click and add a new horizontal guide, and I could align it to the top, bottom, or middle, or specify a distance from wherever I wanted it to be. Alright, so there we go. And that's about as far as we can take it in Matte Designer. Everything else will need to be done in PathTrace. So to get there, we'll go to the cut screen. And before taking it into PathTrace, I'm going to turn off Cut the Outside. That's just one less thing that we need to deal with. And then click on PathTrace or Trace, and that will open it up. Okay, I think we'll start by taking care of this vGroove here and trimming that off. Unfortunately, in PathTrace, there's no way to sort of measure things out. I want to cut this at about 1/2 an inch away from this opening right here. There's nothing where I can really put down a ruler or anything like that and cut it off. So here's what we'll do. I'm going to select that right there. Set feature. And I'm going to change that to 1/2 an inch. And what this will do is basically take that same shape and draw it around it again 1/2 an inch away. And there is a plus or minus feature. One will draw it to the outside, one will draw it to the inside. And honestly, it's really hard to keep track of which one is which. So you have a 50-50 chance. Okay, there we go. And it offset it to the outside, which is where I wanted it to go. In the older versions of the software, if you right click it, it'll set it off one way. If you left click, it'll set it the other way. Just like in this version, it's hard to keep track, so you've kind of got a 50-50 chance. And there's always the undo button if you guessed wrong. Okay, so now I have something to give me a reference point that's half an inch away. So that will allow me to trim that. But what I need to do first is to break the V-groove into its individual pieces so that I can just erase the parts that I want to. So here's what I'll do. I'll select the V-groove, and then I'll select that new opening that I drew while holding down the Control key, and I will click on Break right here. And if it worked right, when I put my cursor, you see here how all of these pieces are now broken apart. So I can now go in here and simply click on that piece that I want to get rid of and click Delete. There we go. Now I'm done with this. I don't need this anymore. So I can click on that and delete, and click on that piece and delete that also. And there we go. So now the V-groove is exactly the way we want it to be. And in the older versions of the software, it's a little bit different. You would go over here to the different tools. There's an erase button over here. You would click, and then every time you clicked on anything, it would perform that action. It's a little bit different in this newer version. You select the pieces that you want to work on, and then you choose the action. Now that we have that V-groove taken care of, let's deal with these two openings here. Similar to the V-groove, we need to break apart these openings so that we can delete and erase the parts that we don't need. The easiest way to do that is up in the Edit, there is a Break All Intersections. And when you do that, it does exactly that. It breaks all the intersections. And now we can go in and edit and erase the parts that we don't want. It's pretty obvious that Control key while I was selecting those, and now I can click Delete. And to get rid of these little pieces, we need to get a closer look. Let's zoom in a little bit by using our Draw the Box. Okay, and I want to get rid of these little pieces right here. So I'm just clicking or holding down Control and clicking those and Delete. And when you're doing things like this and erasing lines, it's very easy to lose track of where you are and what you want to do. So it's very helpful to have a little diagram that you can sketch out. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but at least something to give you an idea of where you're going, so that you have a better idea of what you want to get rid of and what you need to keep. So again, holding down Control, I'm clicking on the bits that I don't want and selecting those and Delete. Okay, now we can zoom back out and get a picture, big picture, and see what we have. Okay, there we go. Now we need to put all of these little pieces back together so that they are one complete circuit that the wizard can cut. And the easiest way to do that is to click Auto Join Segments. And it should do that. And in the previous versions of the software, you would click on that, click the Auto Join Segments, and then right-click on those lines, and it would turn a bold, dark black color, or heavy black color, and that indicates to you that you did everything right, and things are joined up again. Okay, so now things are joined back together, and you see when I put my cursor on these, they all turn white all the way around. That tells me there are no breaks that I don't want. Okay, so now let's tell the wizard what layers we want to cut these things and what we want them to cut as. So to do that, we will go to Set Bevels. And you see here we have two layers, and it says Objects 0 because the wizard doesn't know what is going to be cut on which layer. So let's go to layer number 1, and we'll call that the bottom layer. And I'm going to select that and click on the 45-degree bevel and click do the same thing with the smaller opening there. Okay, so that's everything on the bottom mat. And we'll go to layer number 2, and we want this part here to be a regular bevel, and we want this part here to be a V-groove. Okay, and it turned pink, color-coded, tells you that everything's good. At this point, it's done and it's ready to cut. So we'll just go back to the cut screen. Okay, there we go. So we start with the bottom mat, and it shows you what is going to be cut on that layer. And then if we go to the top layer, this is what it will cut. You see there it's telling you to put it face up because it's going to be cutting a V groove there. So that's a good double check just to make sure everything looks good before you actually cut. Okay, so there you go. That's all there is to it. It's a path trace project, which can be a little bit intimidating if you don't know it really well. But if you just watch this video a few times, practice, play around, make mistakes. You're not going to be cutting any mat or wasting any material, just learning the software. So go ahead and do that. So that's all I have for you right here. Thanks for tuning in.